Ciao. Where have I been? Don't you want to know what it's like going on pilgrimage to Rome in this year of our Lord, AD 2025 Jubilee year, right? We are here on the Ark tonight to give you tips and hot takes from the Eternal City, where I, Professor Rachel Fulton Brown, have just spent the last 10 days, at least not all of it in Rome, but we're going to tell you about Rome tonight to let you know where to go, what to see, and what to do about all those crowds. Welcome to the Mosaic Ark. Yeah, so what you have to be drinking if you're in Rome right now is Prosecco. So I have some. Well, no, I actually don't have any Prosecco. All I have is my usual Vino Verde with my spritzer water in it because, as you do.
She said,
Are y'all
we,
jealous yet?
yeah. She said, we are going to be talking about where to go. I've never been to Rome. So,
Really? Really? You haven't been?
never.
But you're way more Catholic than I am. How could you have not been to Rome?
I don't know that I'm way more Catholic than you, just by technicality.
Well, you've been Catholic longer than I have,
That's
and
true.
all sorts of things like the current saints and the saints, the upcoming saints, and
I
things like
do.
that.
I
Way
do.
better
He's one
than
of my
I do.
favorites.
I need okay. Here's the plan. Here's the plan. You're coming with me next time.
Yay! I can do your slides for you. I can be useful.
Oh, I'm sure, but I mean the things you all need to know about being in Rome. One, well, it's a city that was built a very long time ago, which means it's quite walkable. Which means I was there. My son came with me, so I was not alone. This was actually helpful. And I don't recommend going alone because you'll feel lonely because everybody else is there with somebody, right? Not with the
Uh,
somebody, right? It's like not just not all couples. Although I have some thoughts about the couples that we saw, but let me. I have to organize my thoughts now. Very old city, walkable. We walked 37.5 miles, according to my iPhone.
yeah, I saw the map you posted. That was crazy. That
Yeah,
was like, whoa.
but the thing is, it was so the hotel we were staying in was up on the north side of the Aurelian Wall, right? Which is Marcus Aurelius Wall. I hope it is. So all of this is going to be off the top of my head because I refuse to belabor you all with things that you guys can look up on the internet. But in fact, the hotel was at the north part of the wall, and I think by the end we never walked fully all the way to the south, but most of the walking we were doing was within the Aurelian Wall, which is like where the taxis count as taking you to the inner city when you go from
Hmm.
the airport. And it was all walkable, which was a lesson in itself.
What was the lesson?
Well, so this is where I turn into professor instantaneously, right? One of the things that I thinking about is like what is it like living not in car world? Like
Oh,
what is it like living in old world when the cities were built before there were cars? Although, some cities like Paris has big boulevards and things like that. Some of the older cities were built when there were carriages, and those count as like they widened out the streets for that and things like that. But so much of
mhm.
Rome was built before there were, I guess there were carts and stuff like that, but it's you can walk. I mean, we walked over 5 days, basically the full like range of the city in that inner part. And um, one of the things I talk to my students about when we look at like medieval towns is, well, how big were they? And I always say the neighborhood where I am in, right, from my walking to work in my neighborhood in Chicago is about as far as we were walking across town in Rome, right? So,
Mm.
thinking about how big it is or how big it feels, I highly recommend that you walk it to start. You
So
need to have some feel for it.
is that just the center of like old Rome that then spread out? So the center of it's very walkable, but is it not kind of sprawling outside of the original city limits?
Oh yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
we did actually go. So my talk that I went, this was actually a work trip. But then I mean, I everything I do is kind of a work trip, but this was really a work trip. I was giving a lecture in the mountains, which was very helpful because it was very hot. But up in the mountains in the retreat where St. Francis spent a good deal of time praying.
Mm.
And so we took the train out of Rome. But what was interesting is even the suburbs didn't extend that far outside of the city, at least in the direction that the train went. So it yeah. Anyway, what would you like to know? I can organize my thoughts better. Maybe
What
you
would I
have
like to
some
know?
questions.
Yeah.
You have some questions. Everybody. Hi, everyone. I was, inviting everyone in so that you want to have pilgrimage tips. Okay, so nobody's watching in YouTube right now. That's
I
very
have a question
sad. Are
about the
you are you
Jubilee.
are you so are you guys so jealous of me getting to be in Rome that you're not joining, or is our tech bad? We don't want to have our tech bad, right? The
Hmm.
tech that they had up in the mountains for our video was very good. So go to the YouTube link and check out. Huh. Okay, somebody in the chat, please tell me whether all the audio is fine, because it looks like maybe not. I think everybody doesn't want to hear about Rome right now. I don't know
I want to hear.
why. I don't know
I want to hear
why.
about the
Okay.
Jubilee. What is it a Jubilee for? There seems to be a Jubilee year every single year, which kind of makes it less special if every year is a Jubilee of something. But I don't remember what this is supposed to be for.
So this is simply a centuries old tradition of having one every 25 years.
Okay,
So
I've had a lot more than that in the last 25 years in the church itself. So is this a Rome Jubilee
this is a Rome
or a church
Jubilee. This is a
Jubilee?
Jubilee in
Oh,
Rome.
okay,
And the first
gotcha.
one, I did look this up on the Wikipedia, right, to remind me. The first one was declared in 1300. So it's interesting for
Okay.
Dante, right, when he sets his Divine Comedy in the year by the, you can tell by the astrological phenomenon that he's describing and the date, right? It's he
Mm.
the Divine Comedy is set in 1300, which is the year of the first jubilee, and it was following a plague year in 1299. And pilgrims just were coming to the city to pray. And the idea is that if you do the series of prayers according to the particular churches that are listed in we did read the requirements for getting the indulgence, and it's demanding but actually fairly expansive. So,
Yeah,
you're
yeah, that's assigned to a
right.
different church, right? Because they have some in, excuse me, in America that were also designated pilgrimage churches during some of these years.
Right, and this one you're supposed to try to get to Rome, I think, in it, but there's other ways you can gain the indulgence by praying if you can't do the pilgrimage. But the Rome pilgrimages were the first one was 1300, and then they were the original idea the Pope had was to have them every 100 years, but they started having them more frequently than that pretty much immediately. So they had one
Because
in
you can
1350.
capitalize on that.
Yeah, well, most of the actual jubilees have been better spaced. But in the
Mm,
20th century, they had them at like 1900, 1925, 1933, because they start finding other reasons to have like anniversaries of the crucifixion and
yeah,
things like that. Um, I guess there was one in 2016. Is that right?
I'm sure there was.
But it's meant to be. It's not meant to be all the time. It's meant to be at intervals that make these years more sort of marked and significant, I think.
I see.
Excuse me. That's the Prosecco or the fake Prosecco.
You're still
I had
imagining you're
no,
in Rome.
I'm just still jet lagged, right? I got back on Wednesday and whatever day it is today, I don't tell me what time it is in Rome because I'm not playing the
I'm going
game
to.
of like if you tell me what time it is, I'll have to be zapped back to the other time zone, right? So the Jubilee for everyone is that you are meant to visit. It's mainly the various papal churches, and we did do that. So I think
Mm.
I've done whatever level of indulgence it would have required uh, in terms of visiting and prayers and activities. But I heard mass more when I was up at La Verna than I did in Rome. We were in St.
Oh,
Peter's when they were saying mass. So I don't know. It's like I wasn't keeping track of whether I was marking off all of the, but it was clear that
yeah.
a lot of the people in the city more. It feels like a city. It felt like a city um, filled with pilgrims. It was actually really lovely.
That's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
I mean,
was
it's
it was
probably one of the only places in the world where you would still find probably a huge amount of Catholic pilgrims would
yes.
would be there.
I realize that my pictures aren't advancing, so let me just set that up. Okay, now, ciao. I've been saying ciao now for the last 15 minutes. There'll be some more pictures. Say that again.
Oh gosh, now I've got
Filled
to think.
filled
What did
with
I say?
pilgrims. Filled
Okay,
with
I
pilgrims. A
said
city of
Rome has got to be
pilgrims.
one of the only places that's been filled with pilgrims that were Catholic pilgrims, specifically on a pilgrimage. And um, as we were prepared, well, mostly you were preparing for this because I'm just supposed to be like, you know, in envious awe, which I am. I would love
Well,
to travel and see all those beautiful old things, and one day I
yes,
will.
yes.
But yeah, that's it sounded like in it like the pictures I've seen them ahead. They look great. They look like you guys just had so much fun. What was your favorite part?
Mary.
Which
No.
Mary? There's
Well,
several
okay.
pictures in there.
So I did make some notes, and maybe that will help sort of focus this. I've been to Rome at least twice before, and there may have been some other trips in there, but I can't quite remember because when I was in graduate school, I was on an archaeological dig in Umbria, in Gubbio, which is
Mm.
nearby Assisi. It's near where St. Francis was. So it was nice going to the mountains for the conference because it was back up in landscape that I remembered from when
Oh,
I
that's
was,
neat.
yeah, when I was in graduate school. And I'm pretty sure we may have gone down to Rome during some of those archaeological seasons. So I'm confused a little bit. But I know for sure there was a trip that I took when I was in high school with a tour group, American Leadership Study Group, that my sister came along too. And it was teachers from our school, but not any particular class of students, right? So some of us
Mm-hmm.
in the group, at least one other, had been taking Latin, so we were like, super interested in the classical elements of the city. But at that point, I'd studied pretty much nothing but Latin. I certainly remember like Rome has 7 hills, and I used to be able to name them all. and I used
Oh,
and I used to be able to name all the roads and which way they went and which one went to which city and things like that. So I had this kind of we did Kurtamen, which is like quiz bowl kind of thing.
oh, okay.
Right, quiz bowl level of um, knowledge of things. And so when we went with the when I was in high school, that was what I was most interested in, and I knew nothing about medieval history really.
Mm.
So that all I kind of all missed it. By the time I came back 4 years after that in 1985 with my boyfriend, and we were doing the backpack tour, right? We did a 2-month long tour of Europe, and we came to Rome, and we were there for, again, I'm not entirely sure how long, uh, maybe a week. No, maybe 4 days. I don't know, right? It's funny. I was reflecting on it before I left. Like I couldn't really remember, and I don't know why I couldn't remember because in both of those instances we'd been overseas long enough for me to be over the jet lag. So I'm not sure why I'm a little
Well, it sounds
vague.
like you have a lot of memories swimming around in your head about that place, so I'm sure they can easily get confused.
Well, so
You spent a lot of time there.
this was this is why it was nice, particularly doing it the way we did this time by walking it
Hmm.
consistently, because with the tour group we got dropped off at sites by the bus. And this is like, if you guys have done European tours and you do it with a bus, I actually loved that bus tour. I thought it was great, right? But what it does is gives you a lightning speed version of the highlights, but it's
Yeah.
hard to remember how they're connected. It's hard to remember
Mm.
where anything is in relation to each other, because they just drive you around in the bus and you get out. And we saw, of course, this time there was lots of kids in sets of, you know, the same age going around. There was a big group of French students when we went to St. John Lateran. And you're like,
Mm.
the kids get deposited and they line up around the site and then they listen to the lecture, which I loved when we were doing the high. I loved those lectures. But it does mean that you don't really get a sense of the layout
Yeah.
of the place as well. And then when I was there in college with my boyfriend, I mean, on the one hand, we had other things on our mind than mapping the city, I think. And
Did you throw a coin in the fountain?
probably,
Yeah.
probably. I mean, I made it. So I made a list. So, but this time, I said you were asking me what did I like best. This time I was going back after not having been there for 40 years, but having spent 40 years reading, and then realizing I had just dropped into everything I'd ever read. It was intense. Right?
Yeah.
Before we
A
left, I
real
was
live book.
like, I can't believe I'm actually going to this place that I spend so much time imagining. And to find out that it's in fact actually real is mind blowing. It's like, I mean, it's bigger than like Disneyland for kids,
Mm.
right? It felt like, I
Yeah.
mean, not even Disneyland for adults. It was like a portal into this wholly different reality that I couldn't believe was on the same planet as we are.
Why do you say that way? That sounds like almost like they're unreal things.
No, it felt more real than anything else, right? It was like,
Mm.
this place is the most real place I think I've ever been. That was the feeling I was having this last week. It's that this city where so much history happened, right? You couldn't and so again, I highly recommend walking, right? You just have to walk it all. And to say that
Yeah.
when we got there on the first day, we landed and it was we went up into the garden because we thought, oh, that'll be cool and nice. No, it was so hot that if you walked out into the sun, you just felt you were gonna melt and die, right?
Yeah, you guys are having a heck of a heat wave over
It
there,
was
I
an
read.
intense heat wave, and we still walked it all. That what we did, but the second day we were there, we were gonna go see stuff, and we just spent it, jumping from shady bit to shady bit, and still managed to walk um 7 or 8 miles, all told during the day at least, something like that. I don't know. It's
That's it.
steps, right?
Wow, must be in great shape now.
Well, and then we sat and drank, prosecco and ate. We didn't eat that much ice cream, but we ate a lot of pasta. Um, that now I've forgotten what I was saying. You got to help. You got to help by asking me
I started by
questions.
asking what was your favorite part, and it sounds like you can't pick one
The
because it's
city.
all your favorite.
Yeah, no, the being in the city was my favorite part. That's it, right? It was like just being there in the city and being able to, every time I made a turn, recognize something. And the thing is, I couldn't do that when I was first there, right? It's like the kids, I could see the kids
Because
and
you read so much about it. It's like you've been studying a map for 40 years.
yes. And also, I mean, the city is filled with maps of itself. It's hilarious. You go, you go into the bathroom in the restaurant, there's another map, right? And a lot
You
of
are
the
here.
what?
You are here.
You are here.
Learn that phrase in Italian.
Well, okay, so one, you don't have to learn Italian. because this is also a city that has not only been mapping itself for thousands of years, right? It's like obviously the city was founded in 753 BC. See, I can and the kings came in 510 BC, and then the republic, ended in
Mm.
44 BC or thereabouts, like when Caesar is killed. I still remember a lot of the dates. Um, that the city as it stands now, and with the monuments that are still there, is you know 2,000 years old. It's millennia of
Yeah.
history there, and a good part of the 2,000 years of the city's existence has been with tourists. Right? It was.
That's true.
I had,
Yeah.
I had we had dinner with one of my colleagues, and I was saying, this city is built for tourism, and it's been for 2,000 years. And he's like, longer than that. And I'm like, okay, you're right, right? It's like it's the quintessential pilgrim city of
Mm.
hospitality, right? I was sort of thinking how wonderful it was going to be that we'd land in the city and there would be food for us, right? And it's filled with food. It's filled with hotels, right? It's like all of this
Yeah.
old city center. You're just like, I didn't even know which hotel to get. So we got, the one up by the garden. So I thought, that would be nice and stuff like that. There's hotels everywhere. There's no like, you know, tourist quarter. It's the whole thing. and, and then you realize
Yeah.
it has been for centuries, because the first Jubilee that I was describing, officially 1300, that was like late in its pilgrim days.
It would be so fascinating to just a random Roman person today, right? And say, what's it like being a Roman, an actual Roman in a city of pilgrims, in a city of tourists, and it's been like that for thousands of years. Is there a secret handshake? How do you identify each other?
Ciao. Well, the thing is, okay, so one, it's a city. It was absolutely heaving with people, right? It's
Mm.
when I said in one of the ads I was dropping all around X today, trying to get people to come in and listen to this live, that what to do about the crowds. Enjoy it, right? You are surrounded by people. It was glorious and refreshing and amazing
I
to
do
be
remember. Aisha did warn you, didn't she? Remember?
about being surrounded by people.
It's gonna be crazy. Yeah, it's gonna be absolutely crazy. People there. Yeah.
Okay, Silent Draco's in UATV, and he says the AV is okay over there. So guys, if you're on UATV, you can watch there. Um, we still have a very small audience right now. I guess people don't like hearing about other people's, travel tips. Don't you? Don't you want to know how
I
to?
do.
Well, okay. So one,
I'm
it's
weird like that
it's
though.
it's absolutely heaving with people, and in a way, it feels like, um particularly at the sites, the big sites like the Colosseum and the big churches that we went to. And I've got a lot of pictures later on in this stack of being in St. Peter's. It is packed with people,
Mm.
and it was totally pleasant. It was like it was kind of a miracle, right? It's like you're surrounded by all
That
these
would
people,
be.
particularly the pilgrims that are all there for the churches, and they're
Mhm.
there to pray, right? They're there because they want to be in the churches, and it felt, I you know I hope I wasn't like glossing over and imagining it, but one, it felt very calm and very pleasant. It was very, very hot, right? So this was not like
Mhm.
we were in sort of idyllic weather necessarily. It was more idyllic the second week, but the first week was just crushingly hot, and yet everybody was just there, right? And so you're at thinking about what is it like for the Romans. Well, the ones that serve the pilgrims are really nice. They were all, I mean, it's all guys, waiters in the cafes, right? And they're all
Well,
like,
that's
it was
interesting
very interesting. It's lots
because
of,
when I was a kid, you used to see that a lot more. That you would go into restaurants and it was a real profession. If it was a higher end restaurant, they were all men. It was all waiters or no waitresses. So that's interesting.
well, this was like everywhere, right? You have, of course, it's the summer and people like going to the city and sitting outside, and it's certainly by the evening it cools down and it's really pleasant to sit outside. So, but it wasn't like in one place or only in the expensive places, or
Hmm.
we didn't really go to any place that was terrifically expensive, but it was all men as the waiters, and
Yeah.
at different levels of cheeky and charming and inviting and overly friendly and like come, come, come eat, right?
Oh,
And
right. Yeah.
but because they're all competing with each other, but also, if you have a row of them, they want you to come to theirs. And
Right.
these are people with a lot of practice at attracting tourists to come,
Yeah.
have drinks at their table.
How do you pick? How did you pick?
Well, usually for shade.
Shade
Like,
wins out on a hot day. Yeah.
yeah, no, and the thing is, their opening hours for the outside are really dependent on which side of the street they're on, right? You can't.
Ah.
Nobody's going to sit outside in the sun. So they all, the time of day. It's so everything was. This is like you're surrounded by people in a city that was originally built to be filled with people. Although ancient Rome obviously had like carts and stuff bringing supplies and everything in and out of the city. But the roads, I mean,
Mm.
the road, the ordinary roads between the houses, even though most of the apartment blocks were built more in the 17th, 18th, 19th century, probably in
Hmm.
the old city even,
Yeah.
because the after the fall, the region inside the walls was um, there weren't enough people to live in it, right? Ancient Rome had been maybe a million people, and in the Middle Ages, sometimes the population got down to, some massive major fraction of that, like maybe 100,000. I don't know. Maybe it even got lower than that. So
Wow.
a lot of the buildings that are there now. Well, you could okay. So a lot of the buildings that are there now were built in the sort of 18th, 19th century. But I think on the old streets, so the width of the streets feels like there's no sidewalks. The
Mm.
sidewalks are irrelevant. It's all
Yeah.
cobblestones in the city.
Yeah. It has to be wide enough I guess for a donkey or a horse to get through, right?
That's
And two
about it.
wheels.
Right. And the
Yeah.
cars, the cars are teeny weeny, right? It's like these little one-seater cars, two-seater cars. Everybody has little scooters. And all of the government people, right? It's like the old city also includes the parliament and things like that. So the government people in their suits and on their scooters going to work in the morning,
Or
zipping
scooters.
between.
That sounds like a movie.
Well, it's okay. So we definitely by accident basically did Roman Holiday. If you the Audrey Hepburn,
Yeah.
Gregory Peck, yeah. So we did the Spanish Steps because I had not seen those before the first night because I was like, oh, we have to go look at something, right? So we saw the Spanish Steps at night. We definitely went to. Well, I'll tell you, the Colosseum was funny because we did get to the Colosseum, um, and we walked through the Forum. We went to the Pantheon. I'm naming the places that are in the movie. We walked by the
Mm.
Castel de San Angelo, which is at the end of the movie where they have the dance in the river. We managed to hit most of the places that were in the movie, but the movie manages not to hit any of the churches.
Oh, they wanted a wide appeal, huh?
Yeah, yeah. So even
Yeah.
though, right, you can feel like, oh, I've seen all the places that are in the great tourist movie that makes Rome a tourist destination for Americans because 1953, and there you go, there's the movie, and you go around the city seeing all the sights that, Audrey Hepburn did. They didn't use any of the churches in the movie, which is
Hmm.
hilarious if you've been in Rome because there's like a church every 3 meters. It's
Yeah.
there's churches absolutely everywhere.
Every neighborhood had their own church, which is just a strange concept to an American Catholic,
Well,
where
so
you have to get in a car and drive for miles to get to a church.
there'll be clusters of churches right around the Pantheon, which we went to the Pantheon, and then on behind the Pantheon is Santa Maria sopra Minerva, right, literally like behind the Pantheon there's the Pantheon and Santa Maria sopra Minerva, and then around the corner and that way is the French church of Saint Louis, and then over here is the church of Saint Ignatius Loyola, all within like it's like ridiculous. At some point, we were just like, okay, another church. Can we do we have enough attention left to go in
Yeah.
and look at more great art, right?
Yeah.
And the San Luis, the San Luigi church. It's like, what's San Luigi? You walk in, it's like, wow, this looks really French, right? And of course, the sign outside said there's Caravaggio in here, and I'm like, no, it's not a Caravaggio. It's his great calling of Matthew, right?
Oh, it's the
The
Caravaggio, huh?
Caravaggio, calling the Matthew. I don't have pictures of everything. You know, you guys are just scooting around. One day I'll like narrate what I'm right now. What you're looking at is the tabernacle in the you say the real Sistine Chapel, the Sistine Chapel that was built off in a new transept of Santa Maria Maggiore. Right? It's like it was insane how much beauty and art and decoration they've packed into this region that you can walk around in. I mean, you can walk across in a few hours, in maybe an hour and a half.
It's hard to imagine actually. Yeah, like I said, it's not only do you have to get into a car in America, and if you're a Catholic, and drive to a church, most people do, is good luck finding a museum with really good pieces in it. Here,
Right.
you walk down the street and you see five churches with, like, I don't know, 16 different famous artists' work inside and outside, and
It's astonishing.
from your pictures, it's like, yeah, it's just random perfect pieces of art, like the elephant right in the middle of the street. Sure, why not?
Yes, the Bernini elephant, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I guess in the last few years I've visited Bruges and Stralsund, which are ancient, or they're, medieval cities.
Mm,
Um, I've spent a fair amount of time in York in the past, Cambridge. None of them are as packed as this with
yeah.
art, not just art as such, right? It's like Bruges has a lot of great, 15th century art. Rome is it's like packed with art from every single century. And
That's amazing.
it's been
That's
sacked
amazing
a
the way
few
you
times
described.
too, so just think how much there was
Yeah.
still there, right?
Well, you're describing, this is a French church, Saint Louis. This is a Spanish church of Saint Ignatius, right? And it sounds like they're almost like embassies. Right? So you've
Yes.
got their representation from all the different countries. They wanted a church there for their saint,
Well,
similar to the different cemeteries they have for different, Catholics. Like I think the Teutonic Cemetery always, it sounds like a made up thing, but it's not. It
right.
was for German Catholics that were living in Rome.
Well,
Yeah.
the San Luigi, the St. Louis Church was specifically for the French, right? That were there. And
Hmm.
so there's, mainly French military
Ah.
officers buried there. Statue of Saint Joan, so yes, and the Santa Maria sopra Minerva is the Dominican church, right? So it's
Mm.
and the Jesuits and so everybody has to have their own representative there, and then they filled it with amazing art. The
Yeah.
Loyola one has one of those amazing trompe l'oeil ceilings. So everybody was in line to look in
Mm.
this magic mirror. I didn't look in the magic mirror. You could look up, right? You spend all
So you
most
just
of your
can't
time
break your
like
neck.
this
Yeah,
everywhere.
they know how to cater to the tourists, right? After seven or eight churches, you're going to have a sore neck. So
Yeah,
let's just.
but they make you pay for the lights, right? They're very clever about which. So here we are. What's showing on screen is the Colosseum, right? And that's I how we ended up in the Colosseum. It was super hot. We weren't really that interested in going into the Colosseum, just because I don't know. I was sort of sad about it as a place where people battled to the death, and
Yeah,
with
it's a strange
the
place. Yeah.
guides are that we eavesdropped on once we got in, because we did go in, tended to be trying to make it out. It's like, oh well, if you were a really successful gladiator, you'd get really wealthy and you might be freed, and it's like, yeah, but if you weren't,
Right, but
if
but even that's sad. In order to be successful, you got to kill a whole bunch of people.
well, they were fudging on that, right? It's like exactly how much death was there. Except for
Yeah.
the sand. It's the arena because it's filled with sand, and that's so that it soaks up all the blood, right? So,
Yeah.
are you sure you're going to make this out to be not a sacrificial activity? Um, no, so
True.
it was funny because
Yeah.
we walked past the Coliseum, and I'm like, oh, I don't, I haven't ever been in, but I'm not really that interested in going in. But it was really hot, so we tried to walk around the Forum, which we didn't work. Right, we walked up the side of the Forum, up this path along the side. That was okay because there was some shade. But when we got to the top, there was no way out. There was another church. So,
There's a church at the top of the Colosseum.
no, at the top of the Forum, right?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Rome is built on these 7 hills, and they keep hitting you at different points, right? It's like at some point you realize, wow, I've really been climbing this hill. So we climbed up this hill, on the along the side of the forum, which it's the archaeological site that's fenced off, although it feels like there's
Mm.
fences from other things. Get to this church, so we sat in for a bit to cool down, and we walked back down. We're like, okay, so we can't get out unless we go through the forum. So we go to buy tickets for the forum, and they're like, when we're buying tickets, okay, so this is a ticket for the Coliseum and the forum, and you're going to the Coliseum now in 5 minutes. You have to leave. Go, 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 go. And we're like, who wanted us to go to the Coliseum? How did this happen?
Yeah.
So we get in the Coliseum when the pictures showing the side view of it. You can see
Hmm.
the great these passageways that used to go all the way around. Right, a good deal of the Coliseum is missing because there was a big
Mm.
earthquake in the 5th century and a bunch of it fell down, and so then
Oh, that's what happened to it.
people started using portions of it. Okay,
Hmm.
now you're inside it, right? In the picture. Um, but it had been used for several hundred years for games before the earthquake, and it's still there, right? Still much of it is there, partly because, as we learned from the museum part of it, people lived in it during the Middle Ages, like
Oh,
you know, like caves, right? It's like these
yeah, mini
huge,
town.
huge passages. There was also a family, the Frangipani, who built a castle in part of it, right? So it's the Rome
It's apartment building.
yes, right. They kept some the stuff that's still there sometimes it's because it was too hard to pull it down and there weren't that many people, so there wasn't any
Oh,
reason to pull it down, which is I think to a certain extent what happened with the Colosseum. It's they weren't using it as a Colosseum after about the 5th century, but they I probably could remember all these dates, but I'm not going to look it up. Um, People were just living in it, and then and it was too hard to pull over, I think.
mm,
And it wasn't it they've stripped it of a lot of its building material, but so a bunch of the
yeah.
marbles probably on churches somewhere. But it's still
Ironic,
there. Yeah.
but appropriate, I think.
Yes, appropriate that they use the cladding for the churches. But if you see, it's
Hmm.
like look at so I've included all these crowd pictures in the slides to one show you there were a lot of people there. It's just like it's but then to realize Rome has been dealing with crowds since the Colosseum was built. It felt like being in like the United Center here or something. It's enormous.
Isn't that strange? Because it had the same function.
Mm-hmm.
It was for a show, and the people are still coming and moving down the same corridors that look the same. They're like climbing up like that, right? To get to their seats. It's just it must be a very strange feeling having read as much about it as you have, and then suddenly standing there in like this book that's come to life and realizing you're standing in the same spot some other spectator stood in 2000 years ago,
Exactly.
having the same types of conversations like I'm going to go get something to eat, or I need to go to the latrine or whatever, save my spot for me. It's
Yep.
just what a bizarre thought. It's like, yeah, it's like time disappears.
Well, so it does and it doesn't, right? It's like the on you're feeling like the time has collapsed, and you are
Yeah.
these. So we're in the Coliseum, and I was actually glad by the accident of the heat and the not being able to get out without paying buying a ticket and stuff like that we ended up going in because I was so surprised at how I mean, one, it was helpful to feel like what was it like going into this building, and then realizing these crowds of people that were now going through it to see it as an archaeological site or as a devotional site as it were.
Mhm.
Uh, Fun fact: the cross that's out up there now is
Mhm.
was put up by Mussolini.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, wow, that's
Anyway,
unexpected.
unexpected. But the crowds streaming through it were exactly crowds as it had been
Mm,
set up to be a spectacle back in when it was originally built with the money
yeah.
from the sack of the temple in Jerusalem.
Oh, really? That's how it was originally constructed. Ah.
Nothing in Rome is just of itself, right? There's always this other relationship that it's had with. So there's the Arch of Titus in the Forum with the famous picture of the looting of the candelabra and the other furniture from the temple, and apparently
Mm.
the things that they took from Herod's temple and were used to finance the building of the Colosseum.
Wow,
And
they
it
had a
was
lot of gold in that
enormous. The
temple.
Colosseum was absolutely enormous.
Are they rebuilding it? I saw parts of it that looked new on the
No, that's
exterior.
just stabilizing it. They're not rebuilding it.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Okay,
there
that's
are
good to
bits
hear.
that are like retaining walls that they put up so that it doesn't fall over.
I thought maybe they were going to be encasing it in a new, but that would be awful because you wouldn't be able to. I mean, that's the city right there. That's what everybody thinks of when they think of Rome is the Colosseum. They don't think of the Vatican. They think of the Colosseum. Even Christians like myself would think of that first because it's just so iconic.
I don't think they have any plans to do anything with it. I didn't
That's
see any
good.
signs about that. Yeah.
No, I just mentioned it because I saw what looked like a new portion of it. I'm like, what are they doing?
No, that's you
But
would have.
just reinforcing it.
It's
Okay.
just reinforcing walls because most of about a good half of it's missing. It's
Yeah.
so big, and to consider that it's still so big, and there's giant portions of it that are missing, and then
Now, how many people did it originally hold?
it's like tens of thousands, and there's like as you say, like hold my seat and stuff. There's graffiti on the seats. You can see that they wrote on the seats and drew pictures of the gladiator or favorite gladiators and things like they
Oh my
looked
God, that is crazy.
totally just like people going to the games now. And so then
Yeah.
you're in this like, wait, these are not people doing people things as people do now. There's no
Yes.
there's almost no barrier between our experience and the practice. So this is the other meditation that I ended up in the Colosseum, that it's empire. This is what empire does.
Mm,
It builds
yeah.
these massive structures to channel people, so that
Right.
it
And
made me feel totally different about the airport once we're going back out. It's
it's
like,
it's it's homogenous, right? Because they built one in every town. They built a theater in every town,
yes,
and they built every town's in grids. And so when people today complain about, oh, the whole world's being homogenized and it all looks the same, well, that's not new.
that's
Others,
empire. Yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
empire.
And the well, okay, so when I was there, when I was in high school and we were doing Latin, my Latin wasn't strong enough to read the inscriptions. It's still I mean, inscriptions are always a little bit abbreviated and strange, but I could read most of them this time. And
That's
there's
fun.
inscriptions everywhere. This was hilarious. You realize the Romans loved labeling everything, right? So
Really?
there's labels on absolutely everything. And a good portion of them, this is also what you start realizing them, are by Sixtus V, the Pope, right? Pope Sixtus V. The Sistine Chapel
Hmm.
is actually Sixtus IV. And I was just rewatching Agony and the Ecstasy this afternoon. It's like
Ah.
that Sistine Chapel was built by Sixtus IV. Sixtus V came along in the later 16th century and like rebuilt most of the city. So most of the city was in
Wow.
some way or other like affected by Sixtus V, and he put up signs to that effect everywhere.
He wanted to
So,
be remembered for the guy. I'm the one that did this.
well,
How humble.
interestingly, fun fact is another fun fact. He was Franciscan, which
Hmm.
he also, this is from the Wikipedia entry, was very very strong on clerical discipline, and had anybody, the monks and nuns, priests, monks and nuns who broke their vows of chastity, executed. We didn't. I don't know how
Wow.
many times that happened, right? But apparently, it's like we're going to have clerical discipline here, and we're going to make the city better. And that
Wowee. How big of a problem was it that they had to do something that extreme? And how, I mean, it must have been affecting the whole place, well, the whole religion badly, but
well, it's post Trent, right? So it's trying to reinforce the reforms. He's also the one
yeah.
who the Sixtus Clementine Bible. He has a reedition. The Sixtus V was pretty energetic. Anyway, but they'll put labels on everything. So if your Latin's good enough, you can just read the history off its walls. It's
Oh, that's neat.
that it's
Yeah.
that it's all out there. You had another question in there. Uh,
I did. I probably did.
maybe. Well, you
Sorry.
were still
Every time
sort
you talk about it, my mind just kind of goes and I can actually see it. And it's like a little movie playing in my head. Sorry, I try to focus.
well, no, but the
But
thing is, here we are at the Pantheon with the light beam, right? This is the
mm,
way it felt walking around in the city for me this time. It's like I didn't know about Sixtus the Fifth. I learned that, from paying attention this time around. But no matter how much history you know, there's more.
yeah,
There's more to know about it. And asking the Romans,
there's
like,
more.
what would they feel like? The city, this okay, so they've got maps of the city everywhere in all the restaurants, big poster, wall-sized maps. The city is labeled everywhere of its own history, and like big labels, not like, they'll be in the old mosaics worked into the mosaics. So and so made
Mm,
me, right? Um,
yeah.
and the people who live in the city, clear. I think you probably have to move out if you didn't like this, because it would be too irritating. But you have to deal with the fact that it's filled with tourists, and it's specifically filled with tourists now because of the Jubilee. But it's basically filled with tourists pretty much all the time.
Mm,
My guess is, and so
yeah.
it's a city of hospitality and dealing with strangers, which you know therefore they they'll try out all languages on you if you're not talking to figure out which one they need to use to help you.
If you're not talking, what do you mean? Like, they just come up to random people and start talking to them, and
Well,
or
when we first got there, we were sitting in a garden, and the guy walked up to us trying to. Oh, this is the tricks to beware of, right? They'll hand you a flower and say gift, 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 and then oh, but
oh,
right, and you're like, no, thank you. But the first flower guy did that, and he started with Spanish with us. We're like, okay, that's interesting. But you know, they'll know whichever things they need to know in that particular exchange in the languages that
yeah.
everybody's speaking. Yeah, so it's all the city is used to all of this, and it's interesting how
Mm,
much of it can absorb, for sure, because they've been
mm,
practicing it. But to say how much of the history of the city do people know, I don't know, right? Some of the people we were talking to at the conference, my son had questions, and she was saying, well, you know more about this than most people who live there. If you're surrounded by all this stuff, how much do you ask the questions? That is
yeah.
always the trick. Like, do
Hmm.
you care about how, we became a Italy under the first king in the 19th century? Because they didn't have kings in the Middle Ages, because they were always fighting the emperor and the pope and the emperor and the pope. um,
Yeah. Who? Okay. The emperor or the pope, but there were all these separate little kingdoms all over Italy too in the Middle Ages, weren't there?
right, but Rome is either controlled by the pope or the emperor's coming in and trying to. I mean, a few times the popes are driven out, like when Gregory the Seventh gets chased out by the Normans, or
Hmm.
when Boniface the VIII is humiliated by Philip the Fair. Um, that or yeah, there's competitions between the emperors and the kings and the pope at various
Yeah.
moments. Being able to narrate
Hmm.
all of that, I don't know how much the students learn of their own history, because there's a
That's
lot of it.
probably more. Yeah, because there's a lot of it. That's probably more than they would learn. Yeah, maybe they do it like they do it in America, and they just make the kids study the history of their own state or town. That's pretty typical.
Well, no, I'm just thinking about you were wondering about what is it like to live there, like what do the Romans think.
Yeah,
The thing is, I
what do the
think,
Romans think about all the tourists?
well, in the city of the center, it's like that's it's the government and the tourists, and there's some
They're all
universities
so they're all involved in either government work, tourist work, or education work.
in
And
the
education
middle.
and tourism are probably mixed in together.
Right. And I did ask my colleague, it's like, what do people do here? And he's like, well, but everything. And I'm like, well, no, but I mean, the old part of the city, it's, a lot of hotels and restaurants and sites. I think around the
Hmm.
city, there's more things that people are doing there, but it's not like Milan is the big financial center in Italy. So it's not
Ah,
the
yeah.
financial, it's not like Chicago's got the financial center downtown. Anyway.
Hmm.
No, but I was just thinking, it's like if you grew up in Italy or you grew up in Rome, would you I don't know what it would feel like to live there and be. I was meditating on that. It's like if you're surrounded by this much history, no place that you can move is not like, thick with centuries worth of responsibility. I mean, how do you
Mm.
don't get to build your own house, right? You're just sort of clearly passing through, taking care of stuff.
Yeah, that's strange. That would be like living in a museum. Not that that's a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing, right? Because some people really dig that. They're part of the history of they're part of the history of the house
Mm-hmm.
that they're living in, and that's kind of cool. Now you have to be the kind of person that's not afraid of old things. I could see where some people might think that's spooky, but I can also see where some science fiction writers have written things like you know different dimensions, like you're seeing somebody walk across the room. It's not a ghost. You're just the time curtains like split open, and it's the present mixed with the past mixed with the future, because there are certain places on earth where it must feel like that, and what you're describing in Rome is it's kind of like that because
Yes.
people were acting 2000 years ago the same way they're acting today, the same way they will probably be acting in 200 years from now, and all in the same physical space.
Right.
So that's kind of fascinating.
So like in the pictures now, I'm in the Pantheon, and the Pantheon was built by Marcus Agrippa under Augustus, so it's 2,000 years old.
It
Um,
doesn't look it. It doesn't. It looks new from your pictures. Now, what did it look like standing underneath it in reality?
well, in reality, all of the churches are very clean,
Mm,
and the Pantheon it was preserved as the building because it was consecrated as a church in
right.
609 as Saint Mary of the Martyrs, and the hole in the top is like 9 meters. It's big, right? We use this
That is
picture in
big.
Aurora Borealis, which is where our griffin
Yes.
flies in,
Yeah, we did.
right?
That's right. Right through the oculus. Yeah.
Right through, well, he could,
Mm,
and because it's open, you could see birds flying in and out. It's definitely open. They have a big pool at the underneath it to catch the rainwater,
mhm.
which has this very interesting kind of over interest. I say interesting because I didn't like it, but this enormous crown of thorns display, which is
Oh,
meant to sort of reflect on the martyrs. Um, there's some because it was used as a church throughout the Middle Ages. On some of the walls and some of the niches, there are medieval paintings. Okay, so those are there. Um, uh, there's a icon, a very old icon in a elaborate frame over the altar, and then there's the tombs of the 19th century kings. Victor
mm.
Emmanuel and Margarita, his queen, and I think one of the
All those
others.
time periods mixing.
All of those time periods
Yeah,
all mixed up together.
fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it sounds like you're just walking through a living book, a living history book.
But one of the things obviously for me was nice. I've spent decades reading. I was thinking about this as a media problem. To read a lot of books, I have to be by myself a lot.
Mm,
And
mhm.
this trip was so wonderful because I was not alone.
Oh,
I
nice.
was, surrounded by the people in the city. I loved being in the city when it wasn't a book anymore. It was people that I was encountering, like and streets that you're in. You turn the street and you're in the place where this happened, and you're surrounded by. I need to talk to you about what it was like being surrounded by the people a bit more. But it was like this relief. Although we did go to one of the great libraries, but I didn't include any pictures of that.
Mm.
It is a city that books have been very great in, but it was nice not being in a book. Like it wasn't a book, it was
Yeah.
real. It was
Oh, that's
real,
sweet.
not a book,
That's sweet. Because
right?
you do read so much.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And this I was surrounded by people, I could say the waiters and everybody. Here I got more people in the Pantheon, and this is also showing you the altarpiece with the oldest icons tend to be protected by more
Mm,
elaborate frames, and then
yeah.
yeah, that I felt like I could be in the book without reading the book. Such a relief.
Yeah. It's making me wonder why you didn't go back sooner.
Um Okay, Daydreamer says, hello, aloha, hello, and Silent Draco. Agglomeration of churches is far better than a drive-by Starbucks. I didn't see any Starbucks. If there were some, I did not see any. It's all churches. Or at least we saw a lot of churches. Or we weren't even specifically looking for churches, although we were. Still a lot of churches. It
Yeah.
yeah, we didn't really go. We went to the one library, the Biblioteca Casanatense, which we will have to talk about in another stream. Um we didn't go into any of the museums, so just as I'm describing, just in the Pantheon, all of these layers of time in this one building,
Yeah.
everything is layered like that. It's like you could do a totally different tour of the city if you're looking for this other thing, right? And it would be mapped onto the top of it in the same
Every once in
way.
a while, I see a news story, an international news story where, some woman's been digging up in her back garden and uncovered a villa. Oops, and then the archaeologists have to come in somewhere in Italy, obviously not here. It's like
Right.
you can't dig anywhere without finding stuff like this because everything's just been built on top of each other for so many centuries.
Right.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and sometimes some of the digs they have, it's like you'll be driving down the street and there's this like excavation with columns, right? And you're just trapped. So this is what I wonder, right? How much the well, okay, so how much the people that live there feel trapped by the past that they're having to live within. But then, like Sixtus the Fifth redid everything in the late 16th century. There have been a lot of major rebuildings over time, and
Mm.
includes like the famous Victor Emmanuel Monument, which dominates the middle of the city. Everybody jokes about it, calls it the wedding cake. It's got a equestrian
Oh.
statue of Victor Emmanuel, and
Mm.
that that is from the 19th century. So it's not like Rome has been completely frozen. It's not frozen in time, right? Bruges, for example, is pretty much frozen in time. It's frozen in the 15th
Hmm.
century. Most its buildings are all
Interesting.
there from the same period. Its major churches. It's not really been rehabbed that many times. Rome, it seems like every so often one of the popes will decide he has to do a massive something, and
It just keeps rebuilding on itself and adding to it.
yeah, but without erasing the old part. I yeah,
Yeah.
it is eternal city is the right way to think of it. Although that was the way the Roman Empire wanted to think of it. It's like the city will always be here, and of course, it's been
Well,
sacked
they
a
weren't
number
wrong,
of times too.
but it's still here.
But it's still. So you're saying why didn't I go back? I so what this was this. I think it was. I'm Catholic now. It made it much more pleasant for me because
Really?
instead of going to the churches as simply places to see art, I was there to pray, and
Hmm.
that was very comforting.
Interesting. Oh, okay.
Well, before I was
Yeah.
Catholic, I felt, you as you do, you feel alienated because you don't know what's right. I mean, partly because I'm socially awkward. You don't know what's right to do in the spaces, and there's this touristy level of I'm supposed to be appreciating this, this craftsmanship or artistry or something. Um, I know, of course, more about the particulars of some of the churches, like what happened, the icons, for example, that they have in Santa Maria Maggiore and St. John Lateran. Actually, it's the Sacra, the the Sancta Sanctorum next to St. John Lateran. There's a procession that I've written about that tended to happen on tended to, a procession that was kept on the Feast of the Assumption in
Hmm.
the 10th, 11th, 12th centuries, where they brought the icon, the Christ icon, to meet the Mary icon in Santa Maria
Oh,
Maggiore. All of this stuff, it's like I've been reading about it and reading about it, and when we were walking around and I'd see this, I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. I forgot that that's also part of the story that's
oh,
here.
that's neat.
And I don't know if I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much if I hadn't had those associations that I have now.
Hmm.
So it's yeah, you can be astonished by the craftsmanship, but if you have all the stories that go with things, it's
Yeah.
obviously going to be more. Um, you feel, as you say, you feel like you've stepped into the book, right? All of these things that I've been
Yeah.
reading about and reading about and reading about, and instead of being things that you're reading about that used to be there but are gone now. It's still there.
Yeah, that's really strange.
It's still there.
Because our cities get, they're so young, and with very few exceptions, they just keep getting knocked down and rebuilt. So things that maybe your grandfather saw in New York 100 years ago would not be there today. They may
Right.
have the same streets, but the buildings are gone and they've been replaced. But not all of them, but most of them. Rome's not like that. They just keep tacking on new rooms to the same buildings.
They do. Right. The famous one is the Theater of Marcellus, which has like 5 layers or something in it currently, right? The ancient theater, the medieval, so you just keep building on top. This is the exterior of the Pantheon, and it's, I mean, what you could okay, one, I keeping showing you the crowds, right? There's a lot of people
Mhm.
there now. Um I found the crowds extremely endearing, and I found all the tour guides. So you have the tour guides with they always use something like this, right? But the fashion now is to have fairly long, slender kind of wand to stick and some kind of flat little flag or something on top, right? So you see
Ah,
the flag and because the first time I went to Europe with the high school group, we were in those little sets of people, right? And so you
mm,
watch all the people following their flag around, and you know what, it's delightful because they're all there to listen to little lectures and to be taken to
mm,
sites, and they are all clustering around. It's like the little church will fill up with a little group of, there's in one of the churches we went to, there's a group from Senegal. We knew that because the bags all said that. And
mhm.
and they're all in, really beautiful bright color clothes that they've made for the trip, one of them with like a jubilee of a bishop on her dress, right? Okay, fine. And um I I was just, you could eavesdrop on the guides if they were speaking in English and get little pieces of story, and it was fun, right? And
Yeah,
you could
yeah.
see that in this, I think, let's see whether there's one of the groups there, but again, it's all like that. It's filled with people, but it was pretty quiet actually, except for the sirens when the fire trucks got stuck turning the corner. But otherwise,
Mm.
you could be in these really big groups of people and they would be pretty quiet, which
Hmm.
was interesting. Yeah.
Was I wonder why? I wonder why that was. I mean, I'm happy they were because, yeah. So sometimes people act badly in historic places and even churches. At least that was the case in Paris when I was there. But God bless those magnificent Catholic men who were volunteering at Sacre Coeur, who would chase these other men down and tell them to put their flash bulbs away.
Their
They were very
flashlights.
serious. Yeah, no flash bulbs, like flash photography, no flash photography, and take your hat off. Oh, they were very serious about that. But it didn't stop a lot of the tourists from acting badly. So I'm happy to hear that they weren't in Rome. That's nice. I wonder what was different. It was because they were Catholic mostly, you're saying before. Say in Paris, that wasn't the case. It was just, oh, this is a famous church. Let's go in and take some pictures. Well, it was still very much an active parish, so they were trying to keep some decorum. But from what you're telling me, this was different because it was a Jubilee year and they were mostly Catholic tourists.
I'm guessing. I we
Yeah, I
we
mean that makes sense. Yeah.
When we were in St. Peter's, a young man came up to us and was asking about. We were looking at the Bernini tomb with the skeleton in it. um, and
Bernini's skeleton.
It's no, no, no. It's all of these. I started realizing I knew all of them from before, and many of them I'd seen. And of course, it was spooky to realize, oh, I've seen this 40 years ago, and it looks exactly the same. Nothing's changed whatsoever.
So wait a minute, you said there was a tomb and there was a skeleton in the tomb.
It was the skeleton. It's a skeleton with it's a flying time, right? It's meant to be
Oh,
time, and it's
okay.
kind of
Sorry.
underneath this incredible heavy marble drapery, right? And it speaks out at
Sounds
you, right? It's there. Oh,
sounds spooky
here's
and
our
gothic.
elephant. So this we guys, next week
Oh,
on the
that's a
stream we're
nice.
going to have our artist for Act 2, and this elephant features in Act 2 in our illustrations, right?
Yes.
Here it is, Bernini's elephant, which was right around the corner from the Pantheon in front of Santa Maria sopra Minerva, and I'd totally forgotten it was there. I knew it was there because I had seen it before, but wow, there it is, right? So
Yeah.
that
So you're
Rome
walking down
was
the
for
street
me
and you
like
trip
that.
over a major piece of art. That's
Just completely forgotten it was there. There it is. But in St. Peter's, this young man came up and was asking us something about it, and we were sort of talking, and he's like, "Oh yeah, well I'm Protestant," and I'm like, "Oh well, let me talk."
And
Um, so no, they weren't absolutely all
you're
Catholic,
in luck,
but
young man.
but there were Catholics from all over the world. We had the Senegalese. One group in Santa Maria Maggiore was from India.
Mm.
They were all in saris and rosaries,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
There were th- from all over the world and in lots of subgroups, right? To be doing these, the even in the big churches, even in St. Peter's or in so the major basilica we saw three of the four major papal basilica. We didn't go to St. Paul outside the walls because that was further south. But
Mhm.
we went to Santa Maria Maggiore, we went to St. John Lateran, we went to St. Peter's, and no matter how full they were, it was still like quiet, right? Barely
That's
murmur.
good.
Yes, people saying their
Yeah.
prayers, people doing their people, getting the tours and things like that. But it was all at the only funny thing was there's the rule, of course, that the women they don't want to have shorts and sleeveless tops,
Oh
and
gosh, I wish they'd implement that rule where I live. But anyway, go on.
they had baskets of in at Santa Maria Maggiore. They had baskets of blue, and at St. Peter's they had white of cloths to put over. Right. So
Hmm.
when we were in Maggiore, and I was like, why are all these women in blue? Oh, right. But
But
otherwise, the women, tended to have shawls or scarves or things that they'd either bought in the city or that had brought, and they were
yeah,
all like beautifully draped and such. And I'm like, okay,
but now they don't let the men walk in with shorts either, do they?
no, no, they made
They
most of the
don't.
men weren't wearing shorts anyway. It was more women
Yeah,
in short stuff.
because we have heard my husband and I, one of his coworkers was complaining that his son went to Rome and was forced to cover up his legs. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's not just for women. You have to be modest when you walk into these places.
The
Um,
signs all said, yeah, no short, the
yeah,
male and female character, and
right.
no shorts and sleeveless shirts. And
Which I'm happy to hear. Yeah.
some places were more rigorous about enforcing it than others. Santa Maria Maggiore was
Mhm.
pretty rigorous. They made them everybody have two of the blue things on if they had shorts and sleeveless tops. But
Yeah, it's
everyone
not a
was
good
still
look for
very
most of
quiet.
us.
Nobody needs flash photography anymore because the phone cameras, but the phones are everywhere, right? It's like
Right. This was
everyone's
no.
taking
I have to
pictures.
say this was for me. It was 17 years ago, so this was a long time ago.
Yeah,
There were still flashes going on. Then you're right, not anymore.
not anymore.
But but the hats, it was like they weren't telling people to put clothes on. They were telling men to take their hats off, and little boys.
Hmm.
It's like you don't wear this inside a church.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, just to see other people who are never required in any situation to, and you and I have talked about this before, and your chat has too, never required in any situation to dress appropriately, right? Because anything's appropriate, anything goes, and it's been like that for a while, and it's stupid and it needs to change. So I'm glad somebody's
Well, the Romans are
using some common
enforcing it,
sense.
or the papal
Good.
basilica are definitely.
Yeah.
So this Mary is in Santa Maria sopra Minerva, and I was struck particularly by how interestingly they lit the statue. It was very,
Mm.
very intense. One of the things that it being so hot, sort of helped was once you got in the churches that were quieter. Oh, so you to be in the churches, it would be like cooler than it was outside, so we just sit still, right? And this is
That's
the
why everybody was quiet. They were exhausted from the heat.
somewhat, but they were even, they were calm, right? And you'd think with it being so hot, tempers would be frayed, and they'd be frustrated and things like that. But even then, people it wasn't it was surprising. It was surprisingly calm, even on the hottest
Well,
days.
you're
And
walking everywhere, right? So I think that actually helps
mm,
because your pace is just naturally slower because you're walking everywhere. and everybody else is walking everywhere too, and they're walking in the heat,
Mm.
right? So they're probably doing it slower, and they're just slowing down in general.
Somewhat. Some of the people were being dropped off by buses into the sites, and the buses
Mm.
would cluster around and things like. It was just I don't know. I'm so I was having too much fun seeing things and finding that I was in the story so well. Um, but the thing is, because people were there praying and such, I think it was also people would go in and not just like, oh, I'm here to zip around and see all the sights in this building and leave. Uh, n-
Yeah,
it was people would sit and be quiet for times, and that was very soothing.
it is. It's nice to see it woven into normal everyday life. People
Yeah.
just stopped in for a prayer.
Well, so I keep emphasizing it was like this was lots of tourists and pilgrims. So, whether it's like that for the people who live there, and whether if even we lived there, we would be that thoughtful. It's worth doing it as a pilgrimage, because it's worth
Mm.
giving yourself the break from the ordinary time and being in this
Hmm.
this timeless time that's both very vividly of time because of all the history and labels and stories that you realize that are associated with all the places, and yet timeless because th- you know things that you're seeing that are pristine, that have been kept beautifully for centuries and
Yeah,
centuries and such, are still there. Mosaic.
yeah, and,
So my favorite things, the two things I needed to see, were the mosaics of Santa Maria Maggiore, the apse there, and the apse in Santa Maria and Trastevere, because I've used both of those in my work intensely. And of course, there are 12th and 13th century mosaics. Some of the mosaics we saw were even older in the
mm,
baptistry, for example. Um, but they're still there. Like I don't even think
mm.
I knew what it was meant to say I'm looking at a mosaic that's been there for 800 years, and that's half of the time that the city has been. The major monuments that I've seen in the city have been there. I don't even know how to think about that level of time, and then to think that how I was thinking about it. How is it that some places in the world have this depth of time, and then our places in the United States simply don't? I don't usually let myself feel that youngness so much in the United States, because I know we're missing out on hundreds of years of our own history, but it really is, right? It's like there was no level of construction like the Pantheon in North America
No,
2,000 years ago.
no. And they were excellent engineers. The Romans were excellent engineers. I mean, the roads are still functioning, right?
Right.
I remember a story of it was it Fort McHenry in Baltimore. So it's one of the forts during the Revolutionary War.
Mm.
It's made of brick. It's in a star form, and it's a part of the National Park Service. So they had some information there about it. And in the 70s, they had to do some repair work, and it's all made out of brick. Lots of bricklayers around, so they hired people to repair the wall. And then they had to, in about a year, they had to tear it all out and find somebody who knew how to do it the old way
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because they repaired it wrong. They repaired it using modern techniques and it let water in. So however they built it before, the modern obviously the modern only contractors only knew how to do it to a modern standard. So they had to basically hire a historian to tell them how to do it the right
Right.
with older building techniques. So there's something to that, obviously. Um, and there was something about their mortar too, that I learned last year.
The Romans or
Oh,
the
yeah, they had the Romans. The Romans had a very special way of curing their mortar that made it stronger and made it last longer. And that's one of the reasons a lot of their places are still functioning. A lot of the roads are still functioning, and some of their buildings are still standing because of it. See, we need to get Hans on it. He explained it.
right.
More of a techie guy, but yeah, they were kind of geniuses at that.
Well, that's why the walls and the Colosseum is so it's like they have these giant chunks of concrete that are just too hard to get rid of. And
Hmm.
they didn't need to get rid of them because they had space elsewhere in the walls
Yeah.
to leave those bigger elements.
Hmm.
Yes, and to think that all of these things, I don't think all of these, palaces. Oh, this baptistry. Okay, so the baptistry that's showing now, this is also in our pictures. If you've seen Draco Chemicus Act One, you should recognize this.
That's right.
This is
Yeah.
where Charlemagne brought his sons to be baptized. This is the oldest baptistry in Rome. It was
That's crazy.
this is this the fountain of life where Rome became Christian. It's I, it's outside St.
That's
John Lateran. It's
nuts.
so but the problem is that it's like so the porphyry columns there are the old part, and in the Carolingian pictures of this baptistry you can see them, the gold stuff and the floors. It's like they'll keep some old element and then decorate it. So my problem is being spoofed. I'm not quite sure sometimes what I'm seeing, which bits are the oldest bits, because even the oldest bits will be like these porphyry columns are the oldest bit. It- yeah, they
It's
think,
mind blowing.
yeah,
Yeah.
the time gets folded in everything
That's a good way of putting
constantly.
it.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
and the thing that really struck me both about Santa Maria Maggiore and St. John Lateran is, particularly for Santa Maria Maggiore, it's built on the Esquiline Hill in the place where in August they found a fall of snow on August 5th, right? So it's Santa Maria
Oh,
ad
right.
Nieves, right? It's the St. Mary of the Snows.
Yeah.
And therefore, in the gift shop, the most appropriate snow globe you
I was going to say, I knew it. I knew you were going to say snow globe. Yeah. You'd have to
Yes,
find.
they had a little one. They had a little one. Although
Oh,
what I got there, I should have brought this for the stream, is a fan, right? So the ladies all had, scarves, shawls and things to cover up, like this, like,
yeah.
right, to cover their arms. But everyone, you had to have a fan. The fans were the thing, right? It's like, and they make a big difference, I can tell you.
I'll bet.
So
Yeah.
fans and snow globes. But so the snow showed the outline that they should build the basilica on, and so the outline of the church is itself a relic, right? They've reclad
Oh,
the interior, and some of the mosaics are
that's
ancient, some are
crazy.
medieval, some are
Yeah, you're right. It would be a relic. Yeah.
the
Yeah,
outline
the
the out. So
footprint
you
would,
could say
yeah.
it was this big. It's enormous, and all of this was built
Mm,
in the empire. It's enormous. The imperial structures are bigger than the medieval structures. You can see why people say, "Oh, the decline of the empire afterwards." It's like the imperial structures were bigger than things that were built during the Middle Ages, um,
yeah.
and vast. Right? It's like no wonder people had this awe of Rome as the empire. They did it all, you know, with human, like simple machines and human labor. None of our industrial
Right.
machines.
And ingenuity. Right.
Yes.
Right. Like I said, like the specific way they had of curing the mortar.
Mm-hmm.
It's similar to this. There was supposedly a mystery of how did the Great Wall of China survive with all the earthquakes. It's a very earthquake-prone region,
Mm-hmm.
and it's because they figured out they were putting glutinous rice ground up into mixed into their mortar, so it made it flexible.
How
Isn't that
clever.
fascinating?
How
Yeah, very
interesting.
clever, very simple too, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, just human ingenuity.
Yeah. So this mosaic is in the baptistry and in one of the side chapels, and it's from the 600s.
Oh gosh. Okay, now I have to interject with a question here. So for everybody watching or who may be watching this soon, who like myself has never been to Rome,
Mm.
if they were going to go for the first time, how long should that first trip be? We're talking normal vacation or not we're going to move and get an apartment or something. Just how many days or weeks would you recommend? Do for a normal person and then do for a maniac like me that likes to read every single plaque she sees. So,
Well, your stamina is somewhat a feature there. I actually no, I think this trip was actually extremely good because we had 3 days. We landed and so we had that day and then 2 more days and then we went to the conference and then we came back and had another 2 days. And this was actually good, right? It's like you don't if you well, it's moderately expensive. It's not as expensive. It's certainly not as expensive as London or Paris. London
Mm.
is enormously expensive. It did not feel that expensive. It felt
Yeah, I've heard that about London.
yeah. I mean, we stayed in a moderately nice hotel that the university recommended. So it wasn't cheap in that sense, but it wasn't the food and such wasn't that bad. Um I think, after too long you just can't absorb any more adventures. Right. Well, when we were
Yes, I can.
when we
But
were well, okay, so when I was, when we did the backpacking tour as kids, right, in college, we did 2 months,
mm,
and by the end of it, we were just like, "Oh, can't see anything else," right? We just
yeah, that's a long time. Two
yeah,
months is a
2
long
2
time.
months
That's
of
not a
2
normal
months of
size
traveling
vacation.
around. So I'd say, a week was a lot, right? We managed to see a lot in 5 days. But
Yeah, you would.
there's
Yeah, if you were
definitely
walking
more,
everywhere, you
right?
would see a
I
lot.
said we went to St. Peter's, but we couldn't get tickets to go in the Vatican Museum, for example.
Hmm.
We didn't
Oh, that's a good tip.
yeah.
How far in advance do you have to get tickets for that? I didn't even know you needed tickets. That's how ignorant I am of this type of trip.
Well, I didn't I got tickets for St. Peter's and then they didn't check them. The kids so it's clear like summer jobs in Rome mean getting to direct traffic at various sites.
Yeah.
And the kids letting us into St. Peter's were saying, "Don't show me anything. Don't show me anything. Just go that way." Uh, some of us had tickets and they were like not checking any of them. They didn't care because I guess it wasn't so crowded that they needed to. I mean, some most of it's just to like paste stuff by access, right? So that the sites don't
Hmm.
fill up too badly.
Yeah.
And like there was also I think a feeling of calmness because they were screening everybody's bags to go into the major churches and the Colosseum. We went
Oh,
through
that makes
security
sense.
checks. Yeah. So once you were in the security check, everybody sort of relaxed.
Hmm.
Uh,
And they make you do that in modern coliseums too. You have to go have your bag looked through. See, it's the same thing.
it's the same. No, it's exactly the same thing. Um, so the more modern stuff. This is the statue in St. John Lateran, and St. John Lateran is the church of Lateran IV, which is therefore a church that I've imagined a lot because it's the church where they held the Fourth Lateran Council in 1215, which
Ah.
defines, the medieval church in ways.
Hmm.
Basically, the shape is all that's left that I could tell of that church, right? It's like it's the size. I'm pretty sure it's the size that the basilica was, but nothing visible is from the medieval period, including the apse, which I believe was redone, as the inscription said. Right? That it looks medieval, but it was actually restored because that church actually fell into ruin. I hadn't quite appreciated this. It's where the popes lived in the Middle Ages, in the Lateran Palace, not
Oh.
in the Vatican. They lived in the Lateran Palace through about the time when they get transported up and have to live in Avignon for a bit. And the church is damaged when they're away.
Mm.
Maybe an earthquake. I can't remember.
Hmm.
So it falls into disrepair. So they have to renovate it a good deal in the early modern period, at which point they've learned to make giant statues. And so now Lateran is filled with these, I think, hilariously large statues of the apostles, and this one is St. James Major, and this guy, modeling for St. James Major is just having too much fun as far as I can tell. But the statues are like way oversized, and this was another, it's like if we're meditating on how the Colosseum is made for crowds, and therefore, Rome all along was made for crowds and tourists. The Colosseum used to be like decorated with lots and lots of, I'm assuming, oversized statues, right? So this is
Oh,
looking down the nave in Lateran, and you could see these giant statues. Rome just it in some ways it stays the same no matter what. So we need monumental architecture with giant statues. Got it. And whether they're, emperors or apostles, go for it, right? It's like we're gonna
Mm,
make this is what we do. Giant statues and monumental buildings. And so this is St. John Lateran, and it's of the size. This is enormous church. It's of the size that it was in the Middle Ages, just with, you know, all the exteriors redone, all the surfaces redone. So it's gold and
yeah.
giant statues and the papal chair and such like that. But I was saying this is where, Innocent the Third must have sat when he preached to the crowd that had filled this
Mm,
church. And the thing is, it was good for it to get to be in it, because in the reports of Fourth Lateran, there's so many people in it that they can't all fit, right, to hear the opening ceremony sermon.
oh, and there you are standing in the middle of it. That's cool.
There I am standing probably where Innocent was to give that
Yeah.
sermon. That's intense.
That
Twelve
is.
15. That's these like defined transubstantiation and confession, and annual communion and all of the regulations for the clergy. And, right there where I'm standing.
Wow.
Right next to
That's pretty
this, that you couldn't
important.
take pictures in, is of course the stairway, the holy stairs that broke Luther.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that story.
So I'm climbing up these stairs, and I get to the top, and I was, wait a minute, I know these stairs. How do I? Oh, right. So they're the stairs that Helen brought from Jerusalem that were believed to be part of Pilate's palace. So they're
Okay.
basically part of the path that Christ trod on in the
Hmm.
Passion, and that the stairs
Hmm.
that he would have, in the story, would have climbed to meet with Pilate to judge for the judgment, or when he has the
Right.
conversation with Pilate. And the tradition has been to go up them kneeling. I think when Luther did them, they weren't covered in wood like they are now, so might have hurt his knees a bit more
Oh.
than it did ours. But they're 28 steps, and people would go. You're only allowed to go up them on your knees now, and people
Oh,
are
interesting.
people are prob based on the pace that we went up. It was probably Hail Marys that people were saying.
Hmm.
But apparently Luther went up them saying Our Fathers for his grandfather, and when he got up to the top, he says, "Does this actually work?" And thus the Reformation, because
Yeah, that
among other
sounds
things, those
plausible.
stairs, the
That's the
stairs that
story, and
broke
he's
Luther.
sticking to it.
I've done them.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
So
they
yeah,
still allow pilgrims to do that, though?
yeah, we did. But you weren't allowed to take any
Oh,
pictures.
that's
No pictures of the
okay.
holy stairs. And
Because other people were on them. Why wouldn't they allow you to take pictures?
in the places where you did, there was usually a chapel, or so for example in St. Peter's, where the you could do adoration. They wouldn't allow you to take pictures.
Okay, because people are actually praying, so it's not supposed to be a spectacle.
It changes the space, right? Because
Yeah,
people are taking pictures absolutely everywhere else. This showing
yeah.
on this is Santa Maria Maggiore, with the bell tower, which is therefore, because of where it is on the hill, the tallest structure in Rome is this little bell tower. I think that means because it's in
Hmm.
Rome rather than in Vatican. So but
Mm.
technically Santa Maria Maggiore is part of the Vatican because it's one of the papal basilicae. And okay, so features in Rome, giant statues on tops of columns. And obelisks. There's so many obelisks in Rome. I would say we lost count, and Sixtus V was usually repairing them or putting them up or capping them or
Right.
something
We
like
went
that.
over
Yeah.
that when we did Washington D.C., the architecture of Washington D.C., because they were importing things they had seen in places like Rome. Yeah.
Well, Washington D.C. is a very
Yeah.
credible replica. It's got a dome and it's got a basilica. It's got like a
Yes,
dome,
it
a giant
does.
dome, which is not for a
It's
church.
got a Parthenon, or not a Parthenon. What I'm
It
thinking of.
right. It's got the Lincoln Monument now, and it's got its
Yeah.
obelisk. So clearly Rome, except
Yeah,
for
and
not
it's
with the
got that.
churches.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got the same kind of domed with statues, giant statues all around it. So
These statues are enormous, right? And in the medieval churches like Maggiore, this one, which is you won't know them. The funny thing is, like, I'm used to the Gothic churches in the north because I lived in
mm,
England for several years, and so I'm more familiar with those. Gothic churches let you know where they are, right? They have that they're the exterior of the church itself is part of the 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 design that you're supposed to attend to, right, with the flying buttresses and the
yeah.
windows and the chapels and stuff. These churches, you can have palaces built right along the side. You won't. This is my. I understand now why I couldn't often find the churches in Rome because they'll just be built.
Oh,
There'll be stuff built next to them, so they don't look like churches except on the front where there's this elaborate facade that's like twice as high as the church itself or something. Facade, like the face of it, they just stick them on. And then you go
well, I mean,
inside.
think about
This is the inside of Santa Maria Maggiore with its baldacchino, which is in front of the apse, which is the apse that I actually wanted most to see, which is the great, beautiful coronation of the Virgin, again commissioned by a
mm,
Franciscan, Nicholas IV. I was also delighted to realize that as I was here to go give a talk about St. Francis and the importance of his imagery for our understanding of Christianity, that some of the greatest monuments in Rome were, of course, designed by Franciscans, which means I'm right in that lecture when I'm talking about him as herald. Go watch that lecture.
it's a good one.
Celebrating the great king, and here he is crowning his mother, right? Um,
Yeah,
so that Rome is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. It's like you're walking around and it's small when you're
the
walking.
TARDIS.
It totally is. It's small when you're walking from place to place because everything is like around the corner and oh my gosh, you're in another major place. But all the places inside feels bigger than it was outside. It's magic.
Hmm.
It's like you go inside and at least here, right, Santa Maria Maggiore, you're in heaven. It's beautiful.
Mm. Aw.
It's absolutely beautiful. You go inside and you are transported into the heavenly realm as they are designed to help you
Yeah.
contemplate. Yeah. Go architects in Rome. But this one, like St. John Lateran that we were just in with the giant statues and the mag, this is the oldest Marian basilica. It's built in 434 and it's huge, right? And some of the mosaics along the side are from that original 4th century construction. So you get the aesthetic has changed somewhat in some of these because of the way they've ornamented the walls, but the shape itself of the space is what it has been for centuries, which is just astonishing
Amazing.
to contemplate.
Yeah, you must have this feeling like, what, you're going to let me walk in there? Right? Because if you had anything that old here, it would be like roped off and I'm sorry, no touching. You know, you're not allowed to walk through this door because it's too old. We need to protect it. But it's just a part of life there.
Well, so there was a door in Santa Maria Maggiore that was called the Holy Door, and we were a little confused about that until we learned it's only open in Jubilees. So we
Yeah, I
got
was
to
going to
go
say
through the
that's,
Holy
yeah, it's
Door.
kind of typical. Oh,
Yeah.
that's neat. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, very cool.
So
You're extra blessed then.
here's showing the wall that the hotel we were in was in fact on the wall here, and you can see the old Aurelian wall, which is what
Mm,
bounds, and it's mostly still there, I guess, and it bounds the old city. So you can have the feeling of the size of the city, which was modest, right? Again, you could walk across it in a few hours, and yet it's filled with size somehow. In the interior of the city is enormous,
mm.
very
Yeah, it
TARDIS
sounds
like.
fascinating.
Yeah. It was also full of couples, which I found fair. So one, we have all the men waiting tables. I don't think we had one waitress, maybe one in basically a week of eating. Oh no, there were some women who were working the breakfast in the hotel, but it's men working the sidewalk cafes and the um yeah, I'm thinking now that it's
I've
mainly
been to
men.
one restaurant in the past 20 years in the US, and it was in San Francisco, and it was one of their older establishments, which used to only allow men in, right?
Hmm.
And that changed about 20 something years ago.
Right.
But all of the people working there were all waiters. They were all professional, like high end waiters that were still working there, that had probably been working there since it was still since it was a men's club, right? Since before it changed into an open restaurant. So it's not something you see very often here still, but it used to be more normal. It's like you would find waitresses in diners, but if you went to a restaurant, it was that they were all waiters.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's real interesting. They still do that there for the most part, it sounds like.
So yeah, so this is interestingly it felt like this, this city of these giant statues and of the Colosseum and gladiators and stuff like that, and there were men. Right, I was like surrounded by lots and lots and lots of men, and then
You're really selling this to the ladies listening to this.
I
Just
sure
letting you
hope
know.
so. Go to Rome. But and this I found, so remember that I'm seeing the city through my previous memories of, on the one hand, when I was 16 being in a tour group, right? And so you can of course know that I was like glued to those tour guides who would take us around to things, and I bought every single. The other thing I can recommend that Italy was very very good at is the guidebooks that go with
Hmm.
the sites, right? The Santa Maria
Oh, very
Maggiore
good.
booklet was brilliant. It was really well done, very beautiful
So bring
photographs
an
and
extra
nice.
suitcase.
Yes, by the time we got home from the school trip, I had stack of books, right?
I'll bet.
But Italy was the no other place in Europe that we went to that on that trip was as good with guidebooks as Italy. The Italians know how to do art. Funny that,
Funny
right?
that. Funny enough.
Funnily enough, and of course, the tour guides were lovely, and I take all my notes and get teased for being so studious because that's what kids when I was growing up did to people who were studious. And then the next time I went, it was with my boyfriend, right? So sort of watching the couples in all of these sites, and that so I was saying there were the tour groups, which were there were China. Oh, there's a lot of in the airport. They had Italian, English, and Chinese. There's definitely a lot of Chinese tourists in the city.
Hmm.
Um, so there were tour groups, families. This I did notice there was a fair number of parents and a couple teenage kids who all seemed to be doing the pilgrimage. They
Oh,
seem
that's
those
awesome.
sets of people tended to seem to be Catholic. Yeah, the teenagers would be more or less engaged, depending on their. If they were
More or
14,
less.
if they were 14, they
Yeah.
were in the I could everybody you can all recognize it, right? The
Yeah. The
mom.
blank to
How
stare, please
embarrassing!
somebody save me.
How embarrassing my parents are. It's awful, right? Anyway, so there's some of
Yeah.
those. But there were a lot of couples, which then, given what I've been reading in the online world about how hard it is to find dates, I was impressed that there were quite so
Hmm.
many young people in couples.
Nice. That is nice to see.
It
Yeah.
was very nice to see, and it was of course interesting to watch them negotiate being a couple because they're they're young, right? So they, no matter how old they are, they've been doing it as long as I have, and thinking about what kinds of traveling, you have to negotiate a lot of decisions with each other, right? And how they were
Yeah.
learning to make decisions together about where to eat and where to go and how to look at things, and in the churches. Yeah, I'm remembering, like, one guy fanning his girlfriend as she was trying to take photos. I don't know whether this was a good idea or a bad idea.
Wow.
I
Where
know,
did she find him?
I know it was, and
Wow.
it was interesting watching who was leading who in these groups, of the men being very attentive to the women, but the women being very, sort of calm. It was nice. right? I
Yeah.
had not seen that many couples, and I work on a campus, right, where there's a lot of people that age. Seeing so many people in clearly romantic relationships, it was refreshing for
Very
sure.
nice.
Yes, very very nice. We finally made it in the pictures to St. Peter's because I left that for last. You were saying, so what was my favorite thing was being in the city itself. That
Mm.
we picked one thing each day that we definitely had to do, and then having accomplished that, which was basically I need to go to this church, Santa Maria
Mm.
Maggiore, St. John Lateran, and then see where we were and walk around from there. And that seemed to be a good sort of strategy not to go crazy, because I mean I think if you go and you're like if you turn it into we must hit a number of bullet points, you're going to be feel dreadful because you won't
Mm.
let yourself just find things. On the other hand, it
Yeah.
does help to have a goal to start with. And I left going to St. Peter's to the last day, and that was right. That was the sort of finale of all of these things. I don't know if going to St.
Yeah.
If you went first,
That
I
makes
think,
sense, though.
yeah, no, going to St. Peter's last on the last day was the right choice because it's enormous. And
Yeah.
building up to it from the older churches, right, to see it's like what Julius Sixtus finished the dome there, right? So anyway, what they accomplished building the new St. Peter's and old St. Peter's, I think was one of these vast basilicae as well, just like Santa Maria Maggiore and St. John Lateran. But St. Peter's now, uh, my son was thinking it's pretty cheeky when you're going up the nave. There was like numbers and names of churches and stuff. We're going, what's going on here? They were showing how St. Peter's is bigger than everywhere else.
Oh.
You know, it's no other church has this nave as long as it's huge. You have no concept of how big it is when you're inside because it's
Mm.
so enormous. We're about to go inside. We are waiting to, see, but I love this sign outside St. Peter's Basilica that way. No, it's right in front of you, with, of
Huh.
course, the big obelisk that Sixtus V lifts and puts in front there. The obelisk in front of St. John Lateran apparently fell over, broke, and was buried in the campus, the Circus Maximus, until Sixtus V dug it up, straightened it out, and
Huh.
installed it. Yeah.
Interesting.
So here we are going into St. Peter's with the giant jumbotron in front of the statue of St. Paul.
Oh, yeah, that one.
That
That was so
jumbotron is
tacky.
bigger than you think. The statue is bigger than the jumbotron.
Oh, good grief.
And they have it set up with chairs and everything for the papal audiences, but the Pope wasn't there
Mm.
because it's hot. So,
Yeah, he's in Castel Gandolfo, right?
hmm
Huh.
not having audiences in July.
Well, it's a little bit of it's kind of a big deal that he did that because Francis didn't do that. He broke with that tradition, and then Leo came in and said, "No, I kind of liked that tradition." So
I'm going. I'm leaving.
I'm going, and it's
Yeah.
much cooler there than here, which was the point, right?
I think I no the first week we were there. If he had everybody would have passed out in the audience
Yeah,
because there's
yeah.
no shade in where those. I
Oh,
mean, the Pope will have a little bit of shade from his canopy,
all
but
that marble. Yikes.
it's the heat is just the hot days were the first the particularly the day we ended up in the Colosseum. That was so hot. I just ended up sitting down in the Colosseum several times because I couldn't. I was worried about
Oh,
passing out. It was that
I
hot.
don't think the crowds probably didn't help that either, though, did it? I mean, they're just adding to the heat. If everybody's that close together, that had to be rough.
You did get a little panicky when people get, but again, most people were pretty calm and, they just, it, it,
Oh no, I didn't mean panicky. I'm not claustrophobic in any way, but I just mean it's like hard to breathe just because there's so many people breathing around you and it's already so hot. That had to be difficult and in a
so
closed space.
what's interesting is I have been in crowds in Chicago, like for, uh, fireworks and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
I've been in crowds that made me panicky in ways that the crowds
Oh,
here never did. It was very
that's
interesting. It's like
interesting.
how people manage to stay at comfortable distances without it
Mm.
feeling. because the spaces are built for the people to be in them. It's a city built for
Huh.
people. This is the biggest
Hmm.
impression that came out of it. It's like it's a city that's built for people. People
A
belong
lot of
in this city.
that's interesting to observe because a lot of people do have problems with crowds. My mother is like that. She can't be in them. She gets panicked, and she's like, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is the way the city's designed itself, it just feels more natural to be in a crowd of people, so you
Somehow,
don't feel panicked.
yeah.
Hmm.
Because I've definitely been in crowds in Chicago and felt really frightened. And
Hmm.
in other other places where you're suddenly all crushed together, and nobody was doing that. I mean, even here. So we've
Okay.
gone in St. Peter's now, and again, I'm just trying to take pictures. There's a couple in front. They're holding hands. Um, that
She's
it.
playing matchmaker right now.
I'm so happy. I was so happy to see all these couples. Um, the, you know, it's you could end up. It would have been very easy for people to have felt panicky
Hmm.
and feel pushy, or want to get in to see the sights, and I'm here and this is my big pilgrimage and this is how. No, they weren't like that. I again, I'm just
Just the vibe, just
it
a
was
different
just the
vibe.
vibe. The vibe is like if you're thinking of going on on the Jubilee. This July was probably August is when all the Italians go on holiday, and you might have trouble with the restaurants. I don't know, because they were still clear, definitely open for business now, even though it was hot. But the the sort of prayerfulness of the city was it was it was remarkable. So I keep checking our comments to see if you guys are just hanging out listening. That's fine. It's fine.
I'm now thinking maybe I can get a deal before
Go in
my son goes
October or
back to
something.
school. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
No, no, August, like next month.
oh, when it's even hotter, I don't know. They leave. I mean, the Pope. I guess the Pope leaves in July. That I get why in ancient Rome they would go up into the villas in the mountains, right? Or in medieval Rome they'd
Yeah.
leave for the it's because the mountain, when we were on the mountain, it was in the 70s. It was very pleasant. It was
Oh, that sounds lovely.
totally fine. But the
Now, when you say you went into the mountains, now how far away from Rome was that? Like how by train or bus?
by
How many hours?
train, by train and then by car. So it was by train for 2 or 3 hours north, and
Oh, okay.
then
So you're a good ways away from it
yeah,
then.
and then
Yeah.
up into the mountains in a the car ride was about an hour. So
Okay.
yeah, it was up in the mountains, like at the top, and
Very nice.
yeah.
Nice and cool.
So this is where I got to in my I had one book with me this trip, other than the prayer books that I used to say prayers in the churches and show off in my talk about what prayer books St. Francis wouldn't have had, but that include his prayer. And the book I
Mm.
had was the Jaron Lanier's "You Are Not a Gadget,"
Oh
which I
yeah.
think was
You
a
told that.
really
Yeah.
good book to read, in contrast to being in this city of people, the city where
It
you
really would
sit.
have been. That's a good time to read it if you have a little downtime like on the train. That would be perfect actually.
Well, when we came, yeah,
Yeah.
we I read a bunch of it in waiting for the train when we came down off the mountain, and did, there were no lockers in the train station, so we couldn't go look at the city. We were sitting in the train. I was reading it,
Oh.
and it's talking about how um, the internet reduces everything. It's a reduction of life experience, humanity. If you're worried about the AI and pretending that it's in some way uh, behaving like a human being, that's because you're projecting onto it. There's nothing there,
Oh, right.
right?
Yeah.
The thinness, the absolute horrible thinness of our life online really slammed into me this past couple weeks. I've
More
been
so
in,
to
but
me,
go
it
ahead.
more so to me would be the fake authorship going on, like that thinness, right? There's no. I described it before as having no soul, that you'd be able to tell. But yeah, thinness is another good way to put it. There's no depth.
Well, the
because there's no
thinness
depth
of
of human
everything
experience.
that I realized. Okay,
Yeah.
so here's the hard philosophical part of the stream. Um, I can't. I only. I can. I could listen to the talks in the conference in Italian and get more than I had expected. Right. So I can hear academic arguments. Regular speech, I realized with the academic arguments, because I knew what their topic was, and I know what the kinds of arguments there are in the topic, and therefore you can like
Mm.
frame it so you could start hearing it, which is
Hmm.
which is interesting. With regular speech, unless someone's pointing at something, I also understood this, right? Art is very useful for teaching things because you can point at something,
Yes.
which gives someone a context for what you're probably talking about, and so they can start hearing you. So the church is right that we should have art.
When
Because
you rolled it and your talk, when you unrolled that scroll, the whole room went, "Ooh!" I heard it. It was like, "Oh, that was awesome." Yeah.
I knew I needed that because I was not going to be able to make the point I needed to make without here. This
Yeah.
is this
Yeah. It was
this is what
cool.
it's like being in the story. I'm showing you. It's like we're talking about here online, thinness, flat. You don't have any. You're not in the city with me. You don't have the food. You don't have the people. Uh, So I was because I don't. I can hear some Italian. Et cetera, and so forth. We had to use absolutely all of our attention for all of the other kinds of cues that people get, right?
Yeah.
On when we're texting with each other, that's pure language, right? And it's not even language, it's not even voice, right? It's it's
It's thought. Yeah.
it's symbols, little discrete symbols in a digital format, and we're writing to each other, and we're feeding all of ourselves into interpreting a human being out of that. Whereas
Right.
being in a city filled with people, speaking all sorts of languages, like language, we didn't actually hear that much English. There's a lot of, there's some English around, and the waiters all spoke English, so that's fine. But you're constantly interacting with people with whom you may or may not be able to understand what the words are they're using. So you're using absolutely every other
Yes.
human
Right.
communication that you can, and that's a lot, right? It's
Mm.
the obverse. Being in Rome for the past 2 weeks, 10 what interval in the middle, right, was the absolute opposite of being online. And
Mhm.
I mean, happy to be talking to you, right? I feel I feel coming back online that some part of me is shriveled up and died.
Oh.
Yeah, I was a little nervous about wanting to do the stream tonight, and I'm sorry that so few people showed up live for what is, clearly the tour of the century, or at least the millennium, since it's the jubilee, right? That
Mhm.
I was made so horribly aware of how much we've squeezed ourselves into. I mean, we make comments about being online, and it's like squeezing yourself into this machine world.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, right? And of course, the meditation that we're having going to all these churches is of the wonder of our incarnate reality.
I think people underestimate the power of that, of being in a real physical space and communicating with your whole body, your facial expressions in your hands, into the way you move or the way you don't move. Right? You notice everything when you're standing in the same physical space with somebody. And in a
Right.
case like Rome, what you're describing is you're standing in the same physical space as people for going over, 2,500 years.
Yes.
That's,
Yes.
you know,
All of
and I
that.
bet you I can hear it. I can feel it coming off you that you really felt that when you were there.
Right.
And you're like wonderful for the Italian tourist for, especially for Rome, because you're really selling this. And if not Rome, people should definitely actually get out. The expression today is like get out and touch grass. It's usually meant as an insult. It's not an insult. It's a good advice. Do it. And do it in different places too, like Rome.
Well, and I mean, the point about this as a pilgrimage is it's the incarnation, right? It's like you are in. I mean, so the various. I a lot of the relics in Rome are relics of time, right? They're the old
Mm.
icons. The In Santa Maria Maggiore they have a relic of the manger. But
Mm.
for the most part, I was curious about this. For the most part, I wasn't that conscious of the relics of the saints as
Hmm.
such. I've been in places that you had more. I was more aware of the bodies of the saints. I mean, this
Yeah.
the art overwhelms most of it, but the
Interesting.
living people are there, and the point of being there, particularly in this AD year of our Lord 2025 incarnational space, is to to make the meditation that God became incarnate and entered. I mean, into the world, into our um, full engagement with each other as human beings, and it's stunning to realize how much we've um, obliterated that kind of interaction with each other. For
I'm
why,
not sure.
right? It's like the
Yeah.
why has modernity done this? You guys, if we've been we're bewailing what the Enlightenment did, or we're bewailing what the 20th
Industrialization
century
did so much
did.
more. Yeah.
The what the 21st century has done to us is render us into bits.
We're all still back on the factory line. This is the information factory. We're all sitting at our stations.
Yeah. I couldn't really. I mean, it was good because the internet connections were variable. The live stream recording is great from the conference, but
Yeah, it was.
but spending so much time simply talking to people and being in places and being in a place that has been physically real historically for centuries, and then feeling like I had to come back and insert myself back into this internet mania, right? And of course, because it was like being in one, the Italians, at least the people that we encountered in Rome in this heat, in this tourist season, were all really happy.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice to see.
Everybody was so happy. I haven't been surrounded by this many happy people ever.
Hmm.
I mean, like this many happy people, right? It's just like
Yeah.
the feeling of being surrounded by the joy of being human.
Hmm.
I don't think I'm overdoing it. I think because it kept happening day after day after day. You see them, they're all there in the church, in this giant church, being human.
So you're saying it was a good thing to get away from the computer for a while?
Oh, a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so Silent Draco is saying one of the other parts that overlooked is how the voice changes and alters for context. Yes. Look, point, talk, and how your voice rises or softens gives much of the communication. Yes. I mean, it's like the amount of things that I could understand because I was watching the people and being attentive
Mm-hmm.
to. I mean, I guess, if I'm surrounded by English, and this is not my first time being in a context where people were speaking things that I couldn't understand without a lot of processing. But I think, I was thinking about how much reading, which is silent, talk about thinned down, right? Reading is a very thinned down experience because you're having to deal with, like what McLuhan says, you have to make yourself go linearly with the pages in the book. I was showing you today this essay Mary Harrington did in First Things, thinking about, the big change that happens in the 17th century when people are, politically transformed into our, not now because of the digital, but the, modern democracy comes out of this printed context, which creates it trains you to be a certain kind of way. The internet has trained us to be, uh, different. We worry about pattern recognition and symbols and things like that, which is definitely a feature of the internet. But I've had to spend 40 years since I was last in Rome, reading a lot. So finding it all sort of sparking into the physical world was delightful for me. But the the joy of getting to be encountering with other people in their and their faces and voices and gestures, and the waiters being ridiculously expressive because they're Italian waiters.
because they're telling.
I mean, it was a lot of Italian waiters, because we had to eat, right? Um, yeah, I don't, so not sure where to go from there other than say, wow, what have we lost? And I mean, St. Peter's, it wasn't my favorite church. My favorites were the churches with the Mary's,
Mm.
the apses with the mosaics, partly because they were somewhat smaller. St. Peter's is like those giant statues and nothing but those giant statues.
Yeah.
My son was pointing out, if you look just at the level of your eyes, you see nothing but blank, right? It's like Chicago.
Oh,
Chicago is built on that scale too. Everything's
yeah.
huge. So
It's
nothing happens
enormous. Yeah.
at human height. And here,
That makes perfect sense.
this statue showing you that, right? It's like you're just like you spend all of your
Yeah.
time just looking up into the ceiling, which is what you're supposed to do because you're looking to heaven, but
Hmm.
it's overwhelming. The St. Peter's can feel full of people, and yet all the people are dwarfed.
I almost thought that was a cat.
No, that's just my husband going in and out.
Just a squeaky door.
Squeaky door, right? Anyway, so I, that this it, it was definitely a journey that made me thoughtful about what we are letting ourselves become with our new tech.
Hmm. Especially now that you can take it in your pocket everywhere.
And take all these pictures.
Yeah. Nobody's in the moment. They're just all like recording everything all the time. Just kind of annoying. It's not something I do myself, but it's something I've noticed. But,
Okay, I took
hmm.
something like 800 pictures in 2 weeks. This is
Wow.
yeah,
That's
this is
that's a
more
lot.
pictures than I've ever taken, and I was
But I'm
also.
not talking about photographs. I'm talking about video. Like people go to shows and they're videoing the show, instead of watching it, that kind of thing.
So again, it was interesting with the people taking photos because you were just like I was, sometimes I was getting exhausted of taking photos, and I was in when we were in the sites that I knew I'm going to want a photo of this because there's going to be some point I want to make, and it's going into my mosaic of all of the things that I want to see.
Yeah.
And and people you could feel like they were walking around the churches, and I was doing it right here. I'm going to take another picture and another picture and another picture and another picture, but in there is a way of doing that that feels, um the taking pictures I wasn't upset by, right? Because it felt like
Hmm.
I'm paying attention, I'm paying attention, and I needed to pay attention. I needed to see all of these things properly because I don't know when I'm going to get to go back. I mean, pilgrims have been doing this kind of thing for ages, right? You got to collect the souvenirs because the medieval pilgrims totally did that too. Which I have a fun anecdote for. Gutenberg started out making pilgrim badges.
What's a pilgrim badge?
They would be metal, like, okay, like now you'd get it and put it on a keychain, right? You'd have like
Oh,
some
okay.
kind of symbol of having been to the place. And we get these,
Gotcha.
there are a lot of lead ones. They make them out of lead in the later Middle Ages, and so they might have an image of what the relic there. For example, we have a pilgrim badge of the Shroud of Turin from the
Ah,
family shrine that kept the shroud. So they made pilgrim badges. So people, if they've been there, they're going to buy a souvenir. So selling
they can
souvenirs,
prove it.
again, totally a medieval practice as well. Um, that Gutenberg was making. My colleague was telling me about this. Mirrors that were to be used to capture the reflection of a light and of some sort, and somehow selling those didn't work, and so he transformed the casting process that he was using to make all of these pilgrim badges into movable type. Yeah. So
Oh,
how's
that's
that,
neat.
right? The printing press came out of originally making pilgrim badges.
If it weren't for Catholics going on pilgrimages, you wouldn't have movable type today.
You wouldn't have movable type. So how that, that's a wild meditation, right?
That
Yeah.
is.
Anyway, I'm sorry we don't have more of you guys live. Whoever's listening now, let us have questions. Let me make sure. Let me check the Telegram, see whether you got any chattering away in there. No, this is a very quiet evening. Where is everyone? What happened? Did everyone
Hmm.
did everyone like overdo the fireworks that I
I'm
missed
wondering.
because I was in Italy for
No,
4th of July?
this is going to be a terrible thing to say, but I'm like, did I miss something on the news? I need to go look it up. We're just talking about not doing that.
Oh, yeah, okay. No, but actually no, that reminded me. It's like
Tradition.
saying that everybody was very cheerful. Everybody was on the pilgrimage. You had people from all over the world in the tour groups and in the prayers, and all of the things that we spend all of our time here in the United States freaking out about. I was a little nervous about, oh, you fly over to Europe, and in our Telegram chats we see nothing but disasters and horrors and chaos and
We do see
and
a lot of it. Yeah.
and collapse, right? And
Yeah.
we were in Rome, and we went outside of Rome and failed to find collapse. I guess we didn't go to Lampedusa, but maybe it's just in that island. Who knows, right? It was like
I'm happy to hear that.
what?
I said I'm happy to hear that you didn't see collapse and disaster everywhere.
I keep saying it was like it was calm, right? All of this was
Hmm.
calm. Oh, here, this picture is important. This is in Century and Trastevere. This is a picture of the Council of Trent. It's the great picture of the Council of Trent.
Mm.
Although it's in a chapel for prayer, so I couldn't go into the chapel and take a better picture. And I had to take
Oh,
a picture from the outside.
that was the one that looked like desks, right? That looked like a little classroom.
Yes, with all of the guys in black seated in the chairs. Yes, and it looks like those are pews, right? They're just pews,
Oh,
and
right.
in the painting it's showing the Council of Trent. So this is the great council in which they decide to make things like all the printed books that they need to be Catholic. Um, yeah, that all of the things that we've spent the last few. I mean, it was sort of wild coming back and reading about the fights and disasters and conspiracy theories, and you know the how Trump has betrayed us yet again, and it's all going. We're all going to be dead
Oh,
tomorrow, and I'm like, okay, I've just spent 2 weeks in a city, 10 days in a city that has been there for 2,000 years plus, 3,000, almost 3,000 years from its very beginning, and none of this seemed to feature. Nobody seemed to be. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't eavesdropping on everybody, and I couldn't understand everybody, but nobody was talking about any of that stuff.
funny enough, there are other things going on. Yeah,
Well,
like
and
enjoying Rome.
just like, so the reduction of ourselves to these little texts that we send each other, but also the reduction of our timeline to this horrible, 20, well, now you like it's 1 pixel wide. It's like trying to think about the depth of time that we seem to live in right now, which is nothing, right? It's like this
Mhm.
thin, it's completely thin film of today's particular freak out,
Yeah, which was remarkably like yesterday's particular freak out, et cetera, et cetera.
which is, the world is all about to end constantly.
Yeah.
And then realizing I was feeling a little guilty, which I don't seem to have attracted anybody to come to the live stream except for Silent Draco and Daydreamer. Um, guys, say something. Okay, Silent Draco, thank you. Not so silent tonight. Cathedral of Notre Dame de Quebec was similar experience. Took some pictures, but mostly sit, kneel, pray, and pray at their holy door. Yes, and the thing
Mm.
is, even as people were taking their pictures and being in the moment, and they're in the AD 2025, and we're in the pilgrimage for that. It, Peregrinantes in spem, right? In hope. We're wandering in hope right now. even as they took all their pictures, it still felt like we had depth in our experience. And so then we end up back in the you realize in Piazza Navona, the birds sit on the statues and these hilarious water god fountains. We have, I think that's Kim Kardashian and her Skims looking at the naked statue with this
I
woman looking at her phone.
I know
This
that
is
was
my
so
one true
perfect.
art photo, right? It's like
I
this
laughed at that. That was perfect.
of it's like
Yeah.
and the reason the billboard's up on that building is because they're renovating it, right? So they're allowed to have a big poster board. There weren't very many big billboards. I think I
Yeah. It
saw
just,
a few, one or two around, and they tend to put them about construction. They don't have the big. I didn't see any big billboard sites like you have in Piccadilly Circus or Times Square or something like that. No neon.
mhm.
Thinking about that,
Oh, that's good.
I would like Rome. Thank you for not
Yeah.
letting modernity cover you with this skin, the skimming
Mm.
skin of, right? um, yes, that I was all the more mindful of how ephemeral the internet hysteria is after spending a week not really paying attention to it in a place where time has been uh, meaningful rather than disposable.
And when people, like as you said, it's a city of tourists. So when people are there, they're there to see Rome and just forget about all the rest of that stuff for a while. That probably contributed to the good vibe you had there.
Well, so that's funny because that the tourists should have been bringing their anxieties from outside, right? You could say that they should come with all of their because it's a city of tourists and is and sort of ephemeral in that sense, right? The people the you know you asked how long should I stay, right? And probably people don't stay
Yeah,
more than a week at a time, right? Unless they're studying there, then they might stay longer. But everybody is there
must be fun
temporarily,
days.
and yet it felt more stable.
Hmm.
Like that's the opposite, right? Shouldn't people feel I feel more stability of time there than I do in Chicago, which also fills up with tourists in the summer. And and the tourists in Chicago, particularly downtown, you feel like they're bumbling around in everybody's way,
Hmm.
whereas in Rome, that's what they're supposed to be doing. Right? So
Yeah, because
they
Chicago's not a tourist town. I mean, they have a lot of tourists there, but it's a town of industry.
right.
And yeah,
And if they're downtown, they're going to go to the museums and things like that. But so you know the feeling of time and whether we were in time. It, it's the this was the Piazza Navona. We were sitting on our last evening and sort of hanging out, talking for longer, and just being there in the evening. And of course, that is the reason to go to Rome to sit on the
yeah, that
square
sounds
and
nice.
watch the people walk
Yeah,
past.
in the evening when it's nice and cool, right?
Yeah, but it's like it's all of a piece, and I'm hopeful. I recognize Italy has its problems. I understand that. They need more children. I'm hoping that they're going to get more children with all those couples that are walking around.
Yeah,
Um, and there's certainly things to be worried about, but I'm sort of thoughtful now about how much Rome has seen, how many of these crises Rome has seen through, and it's still there. Just
yeah,
extremely hopeful.
yeah. Well, it's
Right?
been like talking to an older relative who's seen everything and they don't get too anxious about anything. They're like, no, it'll work itself out, right? Because
Yes.
they've seen it work itself out.
Right. And that was of the people we talked to in the conference about, it's like there's the giant memorial to the king, Victor Emmanuel. Yet they don't really like the king. It's like, well, do people want to take this monument down? They're like, nah. Why would we?
What
The
for?
Italians, I mean, the Italians have practiced seeing emperors come and go, popes come
Yeah,
and go. centuries come
Yep.
and go, and here's the pigeons and the light and the marble and the evening where you get to walk around the circle and see the people. It was
Mm.
wonderful, right? And yes, you should go visit Rome and take the pilgrimage there in answer to everyone's question. It was
Cool.
incredibly prayerful and thought provoking for sure. So
Nice.
say we're Luce says, "Come, come, come, come on the pilgrimage of hope." Okay. Well, I've taken you on the pilgrimage. Oh, Silent Draco still doing. Good photography is a deliberate act to immerse and become part of a scene. Thank you. Yes, I hope mine are okay. Um, when you become part and observe, you see the most important or beautiful parts to record. I'd come into the church and take pictures of the things I knew I needed to have records of, and then just sit there and look for angles and light. And yes, it's
Mhm.
take your time. Go there. There's plenty to see. You'll be able to walk around as much as you like. The guys are selling fans and water bottles and flowers and stuff like that, but for the most part it felt like a true pilgrimage for this season, and it was very
Yes.
much worth going. So grateful for the invitation to go speak at that conference that gave me the opportunity to spend some time in prayer in the great city of, of our faith. Thanks be to God. And of course, play it being poet here as I am on Goethe's statue. Anyway, guys, like, subscribe, hang out with us. We are here to help bring, we hope, some deeper conversation to the internet because we're longing for it. We're longing for this kind of human interaction. And in this new media world, we have to figure out how to be again, lest we lose our humanity in the ephemera. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Right on.
Thanks be to God. Right. Thanks everyone for joining us. We will be here next week with our special guest, our artist for Act Two of Draco Chemicus, and we will share with you some more of the places that we've been in our imagination in telling the story of what kind of story and adventure we are all living in. See you next time. Good night.